Today we'll be talking about how to modify building elements using their type properties and looking towards some of the parameters that we can adjust in the wall family and the stairs family specifically. So I kind of want to run through a little bit of how Revit organizes its elements. So hierarchically, we have three groups. The main group is a family, and then under that we have type, and lastly, instance. So think of family as just this main group, and usually it is a building construction element. So if we go to our project browser, there is a section just for families, and we can expand that, and you'll see that these are what are default and preset in Revit. We've got floors, doors, windows, furniture, for example. So these are what we call families, and these are the main groups in which we have types underneath. So if we look to the example of a wall, we'll have, I've just drawn some walls underneath. And we will look to our properties panel. Underneath the drop down, we have several types of walls. So I could have some generic 5-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and each of these are their own type. So we'll be looking specifically to modifying type properties. And lastly, instance is just the individual element of a type that we could modify, and they'll have their own parameters that you could adjust within the properties panel. So today we'll look at the second layer, second group, which is type. So how do we enter our type properties? One way is to create an element, and in this case I drew a wall, and we could click edit type underneath this drop down, or we could go to the top left corner, and it should be this icon here that allows us to go to the same dialog box. So under this, we're looking at walls type parameter. And the first two items show which family we have and which type. I have selected the generic 8-inch. And there's a lot of information to sort of parse and look through. But in most cases, you'll probably solely be looking at this construction section. And so we'll look at just this type of parameters for the two families. Okay, so we have structure, in which we can determine the layers of our construction for our wall. We have wrappings, which I will get into in a bit. So to get into our structures, before we get into that, anytime that you're going to edit an existing element, so in this case I want to edit my 8-inch wall, it's good practice to duplicate it and rename it so that you know you have the original at least, and you know you can identify this new wall. So we'll create a duplicate, and it's asking us to rename it. So we could just call it duplicate for now. And today we're not really doing an exercise. I'm just going to go through the different dialogues and parts that we could adjust. So yeah, it's a little bit drier than usual, but hopefully it's all useful. So we're going to go into the structure button, or structure section. And then now we're in the edit assembly dialog box. It's giving us more information related to this wall, but the most important part is this layer section, and it's showing us what our construction is for this wall. So right now, all we have is this generic material. We don't even have like a specific construction that's attributed to this. So to insert a new part of our construction, so right now I'll just open this preview, and this will show us what our construction is in plan view. So to insert it, I'll have to select a layer, and our insert button will create a new layer above whatever is selected. So I'm going to select this middle structure and insert. And there's a few items in which we can adjust. So we could choose its function, which doesn't have too much of an influence on the overall on the wall overall, but it'll determine whether it should be in the core boundary or not. So if you have a structure item, it should be within the core boundaries, and everything else, like finishes and membrane layers, could be outside of the core boundary. So I'll show you what that is in a bit. I'll add, let's say a layer of gypsum board to this. So I'll call this finish, and in our material section, we'll be brought into this new dialog box, which we could select our material. In this case, I want to choose gypsum wallboard. And then I'll select that. A few items in this dialog which may be important for you are the graphics panel or graphics tab and appearance tab. So graphics is just how it's presented in the Revit space, and then consequently how it's output or exported into PDF. And appearance is a section in which you can modify how the material looks in renderings. So if you're going to do a rendering in Revit, then this is a panel that you probably want to look into and adjust, and then also the graphics in terms of how it's presented in Revit's workspace. Right now, we're not really concerned with that, so we'll just select the gypsum wallboard and click OK. So now we have our material. We've identified that it's a finish, and we'll apply a thickness to it. So I'll say that it's 5/8 inches. And there, once we've applied a thickness, it's presented in the preview onto the left. So when you select one of these layers, you can adjust it up or down within the list. So on the top of the list is where is the exterior side. And then going down the list, we're heading to the interior portion of the assembly. So I shouldn't really have it at the top. I should have it at the bottom, like that, outside of the core boundary. And we could add, let's say, a siding on top. So I'll insert one more. So I've clicked this layer, and my new layer will be input above. So here I'll make this finish. Material could be, some wood material. I'll make it cherry wood. Okay, and apply a thickness of, I don't know, 1 inch. And then that should now apply to our wall assembly. So once we click OK, these walls, which were originally the generic 8-inch, now that we've created a copy or a duplicate, these changes should now reflect within our model. So I'll zoom in, and I've changed my detail level to fine at the bottom bar below. So now you can see that there's the gypsum wallboard and our cherry wood, that's 1 inch. You'll notice that this is on the opposite side, so you can toggle between exterior and interior by pressing spacebar. So I pressed spacebar, and now they've reoriented. I'll highlight these, and okay, we'll keep going. So I have to select my element before I could go into the type properties. So now that I have my wall selected, I can re-enter. And we'll discuss what wrapping is. I'm going to create a new wall, which is our duplicate. So what you'll notice is that at the ends of the wall, our layers terminate. I'll add a door as well. And when we have a door or a window, it also terminates at the edge. There's no like continuation of our layers. And what I mean by that is, if we were to change our wrapping types, so wrapping at ends, which is right here, if we change this to, say, exterior, we'll see that our layer that is on the exterior side of our wall has wrapped around the edge and connected with the interior portion of our wall. And you have the option as well to, instead of the exterior, wrap the interior. So instead, the gypsum wallboard has now wrapped this edge and connected with our exterior cherry wood finish. So at inserts include anything like doors or windows. You can also select what type of layer you want to wrap around the edge that it's terminating at. And the difference between ends and inserts is that inserts has the option for both. So you could have the gypsum wallboard meet at the middle, the cherry wood exterior to meet at the middle. So that's just something to note. And when we head into our edit assembly panel, that option is also available below our layer section. So whatever is reflected here will also be reflected in this section. Okay. And one more thing about walls is basically when you create it, you could adjust it as this one unit. You can't really adjust the individual layers unless we have in our type properties and edit assembly panel, this modify vertical structure section, I guess editable. Right now it's grayed out, so I can't select it. So in order to activate this, we have to have our preview open of our wall assembly. And instead of floor plan, we could switch it to section. And so now we have these activated, so we could use these to adjust individual parts of our wall assembly. So I'm going to zoom into the bottom just to show you what we could do. With our first action, modify, we can select the boundaries of our layers. So now highlighted in blue are the boundaries. We'll be concerned with the bottom boundary right now. So when I select it, you'll notice that there's a lock on it, which means that it's uneditable. You can't extend it. But if I were to unselect it, we'll see what this change does. Okay, okay. And the grips on both the top and the bottom, or the grips have changed. So initially there would be one grip at the top, so you could adjust the extent there, and one grip at the bottom, similarly adjusting the extent. But now we have two grips. One of them is able to modify that gypsum wall layer that we have unlocked. So if you wanted to, you could reveal material below it or from within the construction and adjust the height of this layer. So now we're able to modify the wall, the parts of the wall instead of just the wall as a whole. So that's one benefit of introducing these vertical structure modifications in the type properties, is that you could now adjust individual parts. What else can we do? I am going to lock this again. So I'll click the Modify tab and lock it. We can split our wall assembly. So I'll take this split command and cut basically this exterior layer into 2 segments. And if you're not happy with where you've cut it, like you've seen, my dimensions are quite, they're not rounded, so I'll want like a 6-inch and then 6-inch here. So I'll go back to my modify button and I could select these divisions now. And with the temporary dimensions, I could adjust these, the spacing. So we'll type 6-inch, and this will also be 6-inch. Modify, type, and we'll change this to 6-inch. So what can we do with the splitting? We can assign a new material to this. So you could, in application, have a pattern on the exterior or interior of wall based on where you've split these regions. So how do we do that? We're going to create a new material first. So as we did before, we'll select a layer in which we'll have a new layer inserted above. This will be labeled finish, and then we'll also say it's something like concrete. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you what the difference would be. We're not going to apply a thickness. Instead, we want to select this new material, and at the assign layers button, we'll click that and click the region in which we want this new material that we've created applied to it. So now my wall will have this band of concrete that's 6 inches, and it's 6 inches above the base of the floor. So we'll type OK, and we'll see how that looks. I'm going to change my visual display, so at the bottom bar, to consistent colors, and that should show now our band. Just like that. So now if you want, you could create patterns with different materials and textures on a wall. Something I forgot to mention is with the, I'll go back. Oops. Yep, something I forgot to mention with this boundary, modify boundary that we did. So I'll go to the top this time and I'll unlock it. Okay, okay. Within our properties panel now, there is this new parameter that we can adjust, which is top extension distance or base extension distance, depending on where you have unlocked in the wall. So in this case, I don't have to use this grip. Instead, I could be more accurate and type in a dimension in which we can modify that layer. So now it's 1 foot above the top extent of our wall. Okay. We'll head back now to our edit assembly and then discuss 3 more items. We've got the merge region. So I'll use my split region to create a complete horizontal line in our wall. So I'll click this structure space and I'll click this interior gypsum. So now we've created this complete horizontal line. What I could do with merge regions is I could select the boundaries in between regions. So in this case, we have this one boundary, our structure boundary, and the gypsum boundary. And these will merge whatever adjacent regions, whatever regions are adjacent to each other. So I could select this line and these should merge. I'll select this line and this should now merge too. So I've created this kind of like a new element within our wall space. And again, I could apply a new material to it or keep whatever is here currently. And we'll see what that looks like now. So now we have a base applied to our wall. We'll take a look at it in section. Level and then section. Wall. Double click. And put the detail to fine so that we could see it. And what benefits can we have with this? Well, when you create details of your wall, oftentimes I see people, if they have elements like this, they would create a region, and that's not very accurate, and it's going to be a separate element from your wall, which makes updating really difficult. So if you were to create a region on this and then ended up updating your wall thickness, then you'd have to update the region itself. But in this case, it is all connected to each other. Your parameters are basically in your type properties, and that's where you would modify. So updating is a lot simpler. And if you're going to continue like evolving this wall type, then you don't have to worry about having separate components layered over top. And lastly, with our wall, we can add a sweep or reveal. And so these are basically almost the same thing. Sweep is just an addition of a profile versus reveal is a subtraction of a profile. So let's look at this quickly. I'm going to go to the top portion of my wall and click sweep. We can load a profile. And so this will bring us to Revit's library of different families. And we'll be concerned with the profile folder. And there's a bunch of different profiles for specific families. Here we're concerned with walls, so we'll take a parapet, for example, parapet cap, and load that into our type properties. And so we can add this and choose our profile now that we've loaded into our wall sweeps. I'll select this, for example, and click OK. It's applied to the bottom of a wall, which is not right. So we'll head back into this dialog and change from base to top. And some of these other parameters, you can adjust the distance of this parapet in the vertical direction and also in the horizontal direction. So you're not constrained to just using parapet profiles. You could create your own profiles and have this swept along your wall. So okay. And before we take a look at it in 3D, let's do our reveal. So very similar process. You can load a profile from the library and then add this new reveal. So in this case, I'll take this rectangular brick profile, and I'll place it somewhere near the top. But I want it to be, inset a little lower than the top extent. So we'll adjust these parameters. I'll say this is -1 foot, and this is offset like 2 inches. And I'll click apply to see what those changes are. And I'm pretty happy with that. So when we look at it, even in our preview, that's going to be the reveal that we are given through this profile. So I'll click OK. Okay, take a look at it in 3D. So now we've applied this parapet to our wall, and the reveal will be on this side. And what's great about sweeps and reveals are you can actually modify them outside of type properties. So they have these circular grips that allow you to change the extents of these sweeps and reveals while in the workspace. So there's a lot of like minute, but they don't have to be minute, adjustments that you can make to walls that are outside of just whatever's presented in the properties panel. You can change the different layers and the extents to which they're the extents of their heights in the wall, or how they're revealed. So there's a lot more that you could do with walls in these type properties. Any questions so far on just this section? No? Okay. So we'll continue on with stairs, and that'll probably be enough. Yeah, it's already half an hour. So with our stairs, I'll just delete this, blah, 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 stairs, and I'll make a random set of stairs. Okay. And I'll want to delete these railings right now because I don't want these in the way. All right, so stairs, every time I see them in a project, they all look the same. So I'm going to show you some parameters in which you can adjust them and modify them to a design, because stairs can be so exciting, but if you don't know how to edit them within Revit, then they'll look like any other stairs, and you want to have a design applied to them. So we'll go to its edit type properties, and we'll have, again, a similar dialog box to our wall. What we'll be concerned with are the calculation rules, construction, and supports section. So I'll go through them like one by one. This section determines like the datum extents of the key, I guess, elements in the staircase. So we're determining the height, the depth of the steps, and then the width of the stairs. Calculation rules I won't get into, but yeah, you could change these, and the problem is they won't reflect in the stairs that's currently created. These will update when you create a new set of stairs. So I've now changed my riser height to 6 and my minimum run width to 3. Is that what I did? And then I'll create a new set of stairs, and that should now apply. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to modify this and it doesn't seem to be reflecting the changes. It's because you need to create a new set of stairs afterwards. So we'll delete the previous one and keep with this new set of stairs. Okay. Now in construction, I guess what we'll be most concerned with is run type, and here we can change different parameters relating to the treads and the risers. So I don't know why when I was in school I'd be like searching up open riser stairs, but you can just head to this section of type properties and simply like uncheck the box, and your risers now should disappear, and you'll have beautiful open risers that are light and airy. Okay, we'll go back to that same run type section. Put this back, but you can go through these yourself, different parameters of like thickness and the profile and the nosing of the stairs. And if you aren't really sure what it's affecting, just hover over this parameters column, and whatever item, hover over it, and it should have a little drop down of identifying which part of the stairs it is affecting. So we could change our profile, for example, and unfortunately we only have 2 options. In order to get a new profile for anything, basically, if you want to change the tread profile or riser profile, you'll have to create a new profile from a family. How do we do that? I'll show you really quickly. We'll exit out of this. So we can go to File, New, and Family. There's going to be a bunch of different templates. We're concerned with the profile template. And this will be a new like Revit file. So this is separate from this workspace that we got going on. And here you could draw in your new profile for the treads or the risers, however you want it. And in order to determine what profile it's specifically for, we'll go to our properties panel here on the left. The only thing you're really going to want to pay attention to is this profile usage. And this drop down will have a bunch of different families or elements in which you can apply this profile to. So let's say this is going to be our stair tread. So we'll apply that. And from there, after you're satisfied with how your profile looks, we can load into project and close. You just have to ensure that you save it at a place where Revit can trace back to it. So we'll say this is our stair tread. Yeah. Okay. So when we go to our stairs, no, I'll show you what it is in our families section in Project Browser. So have this opened. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a bunch of different family objects. We'll go to Profiles. And you'll see that our new stair tread has been inserted into the Revit project. So that's how you know like what options you have available and where it will be inserted once you create a new one. So it's under Families and Profiles. So when we go to our actual stair, we're back into the Run Type section. And under Tread Profile, instead of the 2 options, we now have 3 options since we create a new one, and we could now apply that to our stairs. And this looks horrendous, so I'm not going to keep it. Okay, so I'll let you guys sift through this and read what it affects. And your landing type is default to the same as your run. So whatever your tread data is in the previous section that we looked at, it will be the same here unless you uncheck it and modify it uniquely to the landing. Okay. And as I mentioned before in the walls section, that if you do modify something that's existing, make sure that you duplicate it first, not like how I did right now. Duplicate it first so that you retain the original, and then you have this new one that you could fiddle around with. Okay, and lastly, the support section, which is also really simple. It's divided into 3 parts. You got your right support, which has 3 parameters, your left support, 3 parameters, and middle support, 3 parameters. And each parameter is the same in both the right, left, and middle. So by default, we have this ugly stringer, which is on the sides of our stairs, which I want to note that if you create a run width, say 3 feet, that's just including the actual stair. It's not going to include this stringer on the sides. So your stringers will all be an added dimension to your overall stair width. So right now I have it as closed, but you have the options to have it open, which means it's underneath the tread and the riser. So we'll see what that looks like. Yep, so now it's underneath, and you can offset it into the stairs or out of the stairs using this box, or you could have it as nothing. And so your steps are just floating. And so this applies again for the left support. We have the same options, and middle is often unchecked because we'll have the left and the right to suffice. But if you have a middle support, then you don't need the left and right, and it's all good. What's next? Yep, so if I have stringer, if I have one of these options, either close or open, we have the option to go into the new dialog box, which we can, again, create a section profile that's labeled as a stringer. So what we did last time was we created a profile and labeled it as tread. So it can apply to tread, but if you want to create a profile for a stringer, you have to change that option to stringer. And yep, you have different parameters in which you could adjust the height, the depth of the stringer, how far it is within the steps, so you can raise it up and down or in and out. Okay. And one more thing to note is that you will have various families of stairs. So you could have an assembled stairs, which is what we've looked at, but you could also have cast in place and precast. There's only a few differences with the cast in place stairs. By default, you're not gonna have this stuff. It's going to be none. So if I change this to cast in place, we have none. And with our precast stairs, we have this new section called end connection, and that basically has parameters to adjust how your precast stairs can connect to like a floor, for example. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it I wanted to explain with the staircase. Everything else, apart from railings, which is its whole other world, are much simpler than these families. So for example, if I chose floor, created my floor, bam, and headed into edit type properties, we have the same, sections, and we'll be concerned again with just construction. And here, all we need to really adjust are our layers for our floors. Yep, nothing really much else to do there. So, yep, I would suggest going through different building elements like doors, windows, things that you use very frequently, and go through these just to know what parameters you can adjust and really apply more design to them instead of just, taking what's default and placing into your building, because, details is what really makes the architecture of a building. Especially in third year, you're going to be doing a lot of detail design and construction drawings in the second semester. So familiarizing yourself with the type properties for various families will help you hopefully in the next semester. Do you guys have any questions regarding type properties or Revit in general if you have some concern with your project?
No, I think we're
No?
good. No.
Okay, cool.
This was very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't really play around with this stuff too much when I was using Revit in school.
Right.
And yeah, I would always get stuff from online and then download it and then customize it, but then you could do it yourself here.
Mm-hmm.